my favorite Christmas traditions is when Congress tries to cram a bunch of horrible policies they could never get passed individually into a massive bill the size of a submarine and insist it must be passed to keep the government open through the new year. That tradition is upon us yet again as Congress has a deadline of this Saturday to pass its annual continuing resolution or risk a government shutdown. Oh no, the horror. This should really make all of you mad that they do this. It is emotional manipulation of the American people that they get away with every year so that they never have to actually do their jobs, legislate, debate concepts, secure support for them, balance the budget, or actually get a hold of government spending. It's infuriating. And they do this at this time of year intentionally so that they can use the old, like, you're gonna put federal employees out of a job at Christmas excuse. But it seems their ruse has hit a snag this year. People don't care, me included. Like, make this my background right now. I'm okay with a government shutdown. I don't care if you shut it down permanently. Throw these people out on the streets, make them learn an actual skill, and give us our taxes back. Like, I don't have sympathy for federal employees. I just don't. I love this person on Twitter said, I'm getting a lot of grief from federal workers over my post encouraging a federal government shutdown. The amazing thing is that none of them seem to understand that uncertainty about your next paycheck is the constant normal lifestyle of small business owners. You know, the small business owners who actually create wealth and pay the federal workers' salaries at the point of a gun. The cluelessness of government workers about just how good they have it is a huge reason why they are so despised. And I think a growing number of Americans have felt this way for some time. I think that we have seen that in the results of the past election. But thanks to a number of factors, we're actually seeing Congress start to listen to the American people, it seems. Over the past couple of days on Twitter, Elon Musk has pitched an absolute hissy fit over this continuing resolution. He has been exposing what's in it, and that has galvanized the American people, largely the right-wing ecosystem and base. They have been pushing back, raising their voices, and finally on Wednesday, Trump himself seemed to weigh in. Biden is curiously completely MIA, okay? Like, I know they tried to weekend at Bernie's him this past election season, but it's crazy to me. I've never seen a lame duck be so limp. Like, do something. Where is he? Doesn't matter. It seems Trump is assuming his authority position. He weighed in on Wednesday, pushing back on this bill, called it atrocious, said that Republicans should not pass it. And it looks like the message is getting through to them and appropriately instilling fear in sitting members who are now scurrying away from their support for this bill. And you better believe they did support it. They were about to pass it until he weighed in, but now they're like little mice in a flood running down the streets. I love to see it. Before we get started, I'm Hannah Cox. Welcome to my channel where I bring you my politically homeless takes on politics and culture. Before we dive in today, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and of course, ring that notification bell so you never miss one of my episodes. Over the next 4 years on this show, I suspect we are probably going to play a game called Good Trump, Bad Trump pretty frequently, but this is most certainly an instance of good Trump, at least mostly good Trump. According to NBC News, President-elect Donald Trump exoriated a bipartisan government funding bill Wednesday afternoon, throwing the stopgap measure into chaos, just as leaders of both parties were hoping to pass it. The joint statement by Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance left Republican leaders scrambling to come up with a new plan in the House where Trump wields significant influence. A top GOP lawmaker later said the bill released just a day earlier had been scrapped. That's right, guys. They literally released this monstrosity to them with less than 24 hours. So nobody had even fully read this bill, which is the norm, but which is also unacceptable. NBC News went on to say the bill would have kept the government open until March 14th. A shutdown will occur at 12:01 a.m. Saturday without action from Congress. There is currently no fallback plan. Republicans must get smart and tough if Democrats threaten to shut down the government unless we give them everything they want, then call their bluff, Trump and Vance said. It is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and President Joe Biden who are holding up aid to our farmers and disaster relief. Side note, on top of the typical emotional manipulation of you're going to shut down the government around Christmas, they also have stuck in actual aid relief for farmers and for people in North Carolina in order to make it even harder for people to not vote for this thing, which is their typical shenanigans, but what should actually infuriate you. That is disgusting behavior to play around with Americans' lives in that manner. And they could easily come and pass these things as standalone line items. They don't want to because they want to use that as an excuse to force people to pass all the other bogus in this bill, which we're going to get to. The report goes on to say, in a shocking twist, Trump also demanded that the legislation include a debt ceiling increase. This is why I said it's mostly good Trump. This part's kind of bad. Neither party had even been considering that. It's expected to come up in the middle of next year, and Trump made it clear he wanted it to happen on Biden's watch, which, I mean, while I don't want to see an increase in the debt ceiling, it is kind of funny for him to play chess like this. Increasing the debt ceiling is not great, but we'd rather do it on Biden's watch, Trump said. If Democrats won't cooperate on the debt ceiling now, what makes anyone think they would do it in June during our administration? Let's have this debate now, and we should pass a streamlined spending bill that doesn't give Chuck Schumer and the Democrats everything they want. Trump's statement said the solution is a temporary funding bill without a Democrat giveaway combined with an increase in the debt ceiling. Anything else is a betrayal for our country. Later, Trump threatened the political futures of Republicans who don't heed his warnings about the bill. Any Republican that would be so stupid as to do this should and will be primaried, he said Wednesday evening in a post on Truth Social. When asked whether the version of the bill that House Speaker Mike Johnson unveiled on Tuesday was dead, House Majority Leader Steve Scalise told reporters yes. I think Mike Johnson might be cooked. I mean, he's always been a pretty weak speaker, if we're being honest, thanks to the way that he got the position in the first place. I don't have time to go back over all of that, but needless to say, he doesn't have a ton of authority. He's never really managed to get his caucuses under his thumb. So if Trump is coming in and overriding this, it's a done deal, but it does make him look pretty weak as an end result. Here is Congress's most eloquent speaker, Senator Kennedy, weighing in on that.
Well, Lawrence, I saw what you saw. I mean, it's a multiple vehicle pileup. I knew as soon as I saw the bill it was going to be trouble. The thing was as big as a Costco, and Speaker Johnson had to add a lot of spending porn to get the Democrats on board. This can be fixed. Here's what, if I were king for a day, I'm not, and I don't aspire to be, here's what I'd do. First, I would tell everybody to take their meds. Number two, I think President Trump is going to have to consider coming to Washington. I mean, let's face it, he's the president now. It's not President Biden. President Trump needs to sit down with Mike Johnson and John Thune and come up with a new skinny CR. If the president wants to do something on the debt limit, we need to find out what it is and put it in the bill. And then the president's going to have to help Mike sell it in the House.
I don't know that I agree with Senator Kennedy very often on policy, but he is hands down the funniest person in office. I could watch media clips of him all day. His word choices are just immaculate. Now, Representative Andy Harris, who is the chair of the Freedom Caucus, which holds substantial power in the House, said the American people don't send their representatives to Washington to vote on a 1,500-page bill in less than 24 hours that spends $110 billion, which adds $110 billion to the deficit, without the opportunity to offer amendments to perhaps pay for this bill. The process is broken. And he is unquestionably correct. They don't have to do this. They want to do this because there is a ton of stuff in these kinds of bills that they know could never get passed as a line item. And that's why the actual good people in Congress, people like Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and formerly Justin Amash, they have been calling for single issue bills for some time. I think that's one of the biggest reforms we could have happen in this country, not only because it would provide some daylight on what's going on. Again, they don't even let most of the members themselves read the legislation before they pass it, much less the American people. But it also would allow Congress to do their jobs and truly debate proposals, offer amendments, and allow the American people to have the time and opportunity to contact their lawmakers and weigh in on how they want to see them vote as well. They could easily pass right now before Saturday a clean continuing resolution, which is a bill that would continue funding the federal government at current levels, plus adding the disaster relief in there, which would easily pass. They don't want to do that. This is a scam. Now, what is in this bill, you might ask? Obviously, nobody can truly say because it's humongous, but some people have done some digging, including, it appears, Elon Musk. And here are some of the things that are getting the most attention. Number one, Congress has slipped in a pay raise for themselves in this thing. Yes, really. And we can debate that all day, right? The current pay for Congress, I think, is around $174,000, which is definitely more than the median American makes, which I believe rings in somewhere around $80,000. So I don't think they're like necessarily underpaid. That being said, having to pay for two residences does get expensive, which people have to be able to be both in their districts and in DC when they are in office. I would rather see Congress fund a dormitory for these people, right? Like they don't need pay raises in my book. I think some people will try to argue that if you don't raise the pay, only wealthy people will be in office. Other people won't run for office because it's too expensive. I don't think that holds any water whatsoever. Wealthy people aren't running for Congress as is because they don't have the money it takes to campaign. Like, be so serious. It's not about the salary. That's just an excuse. They also slipped in a little provision. This one really makes me mad to enable Congress to exclude themselves from Obamacare. Okay. So they passed this atrocious bill that the rest of us have to live with the repercussions of, but now they're trying to make sure that they don't have to live with their handiwork. That's disgusting. Congressman Greg Steube, who is one of the few I like, he's out of Florida, he did a detailed breakdown on his Twitter documenting some of the just worst ideas that are in this thing and some of the pork. I'll give you a few examples. He said festivals and stadium concerts have apparently found their way into Congress's holiday spending spree, with the American Music Tourism Act being tucked into the continuing resolution. Yes, you read that right. Your tax dollars are now funding music tourism. He also pointed out that the continuing resolution expands the Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Act, which includes gain-of-function research. Yes, really. I don't know if these people are psychopaths or idiots or both. How is this possibly still on the table? He also says it has more unchecked emergency powers and mask mandates and passports. Have we learned nothing from the horrific abuses the government imposed during COVID? These same overreaching policies are being set up to control us again. These people are slippery. He pointed out, too, that Speaker Mike Johnson promised no more continuing resolutions. Now here we are. Democrats win again. Americans lose, all in a Republican-controlled House. It's no wonder why Americans don't trust Congress. And then he provided documentation of where Mike Johnson, when he was trying to get the position as Speaker, said that he was done with short-term CRs, that we were resolved against them. And yet here he is. This is why I say he's been very weak. I mean, I expect politicians to go back on their promises, but come on. What is the point in being Speaker of the House just to be a whipping boy for the Democrats? And this is why I have no faith in Republicans, right? I moved away from Republicans back when I realized that they don't truly align with me. They're not actually principled free market capitalist or stalwarts of limited government or defenders of individual liberty. And those are the things I care about in politics. Okay, so I already moved away from them with that. But on top of that, when I hear other independents or libertarians or people say we still need to sort of make our way into a big tent with the Republicans and at least you kind of, use the party to get stuff done. You can't. Because they are a bunch of limp-wristed losers. Even when they are in the majority, they do not do the meaningful things they could do. They couldn't even get rid of Obamacare. They can't cut spending. They are literally just a miniature version of the Democrats. I don't get it. I really, truly don't get it. I can't fathom being that spineless and feckless once you get to Congress, but that is how they operate. I love this suggestion by Bill Ackman. He's a big political donor, billionaire. He said, imagine if all bills were required to be footnoted with references to which congressman added a provision to a bill. We could then see from whence the pork comes. The way it has historically been done, there is no cost to being behind a particularly egregious piece of pork. With this change, there would be a cost to even proposing government waste. I love that idea. I just cannot emphasize enough to you guys how much they get away with this. And this is one reason when people are like, are you ever going to run for office? Will you ever be in office? Why? Why? Because in order to be in office, I'd have to play the game of one of these two parties just to even win. And then once I did win, I would have to fundraise for them and be told what to do by their leadership. And if I stepped out of line, I would get primaried and then I would be out of office all over again. This is a sham. The idea that the American people have representation is a farce. And I guess it's a good thing that Trump seems to take the mandate the American people have given him seriously. He seems to actually be listening to them, especially on spaces like Twitter. I mean, that's one bright light for how our country should operate, and that we're getting kind of a little sliver here. I think that that's exciting and proof of the age of information and free speech platforms being able to ultimately make a difference if they are allowed to operate outside of government censorship. But I also have to say, I don't think it's a good situation that we're in, where the only thing stopping this was a president coming in and basically overriding Congress. Because again, these people were going to pass it. They thought they had a pretty clear pathway. They don't have that much trouble passing this thing most years. So fortunately, Trump's instincts on this matter are good, and he's listening to the American people, but it is still proof that the system is broken, because these lawmakers were not going to do anything to actually meaningfully push back. They weren't going to listen to the American people who were speaking out against this until Trump got involved. And now they're all just like coming on Twitter, posting their ridiculous posts. Unfortunately, I cannot support the continuing resolution, which does not adequately cut reckless federal spending. I look forward to working with President Trump and House GOP to fix our broken economy and put more money back in the pockets of taxpayers. It's like a script. They're all posting en masse today, but notice all of these posts are less than 24 hours old, because they didn't do this until Trump spoke out. Here's another one. I am voting no on the current CR. Only 96 pages out of the 1547-page bill touches government funding, aid for farmers, and disaster relief. The CR isn't focused on the essentials. It's more of a Christmas giveaway to the left. We can do better than this. Where was this on Tuesday? And honestly, I could just keep working down the line. I could just keep posting these. It's been all day that they've been running to make these posts, acting like they are standing on business. It's just so annoying to me. But this is why the left hates Trump so much. I dislike him. I don't want to say I hate him. I don't hate him. I dislike him for very different reasons than they do, all based on policy. They hate him because he is an actual threat to the establishment. And the establishment is both left and right. They've never hated a Republican like they hate him, because most Republicans, as you can see by these representatives, are totally willing to lay down and give the Democrats whatever they want. Trump is not. Trump actually has a spine. He has the ability to push back, and he has the ability to make others stiffen their spines too. And that is why they actually hate him. As this person said on Twitter, Congress is angry that Americans are paying attention. And that really is what it comes down to, okay? Look at these people on the left, both in Congress and in the grassroots, who are losing their minds over this. Representative Don Bayer quote tweeted Elon Musk on Twitter, who was in the process of talking about wanting to let the government shut down, and said, the richest man in the world says he wants to shut down the government, forcing millions of American workers, including our troops, to go without pay through the holidays. Republicans are following his orders. This is insane. And my friend John Bachman, who is an excellent anchor on Newsmax, I joined his show a good bit, so you should tune into it. He quote tweeted him and said, Congress, what's stopping you from passing a standalone bill to pay our troops? Mic drop. Nothing. The Democrats are the ones messing around with disaster aid relief and paying the troops. They could take all this other crap out of there and just pass these things and keep it going. Another person on Twitter was ranting about Elon Musk and said an unelected billionaire was crowned co-president by the Republican Party. They've given him the influence to make a damn post that throws the spending bill into limbo because the House Republicans are scared of him. No greater example of oligarchy, where the ultra wealthy run the show. And Representative Tony Lavasco, he's a representative at the state level in Missouri, excellent lawmaker. He said, I'll take unelected Elon Musk killing legislation over the unelected bureaucrats writing it any day. Another mic drop. Like, these people are getting owned on Twitter, and I love it. Because, yeah, they want to sit here and whine and groan and moan about things like Chevron deference that essentially say unelected bureaucrats can't run our country anymore. But when a private citizen, which is what Elon Musk is, weighs in and uses his free speech to make a difference, all of a sudden we're in an oligarchy. Another person on Twitter said, no matter what you think about the bill, Elon personally posted about it 122 times today. That is unhinged, but go forth. And he was seemingly able to get it killed with the potential to shut down the government. We are now being ruled by the richest man on earth. Noah Wall pushed back on him and said, and yet you saw everything he said, and his requests were made in the most public way possible. The people who have always run things in the past have made their demands privately, and we often don't even know their names or true aims. Thank you. Exactly. Like, this is unhinged. This is actually just stupid. You think that behind the scenes, most of the time, very wealthy, connected people aren't putting their thumb on the scale and impacting the legislative decisions that are made? Of course you know that. You would have to be brain dead to not know that, okay? You know it. You are just mad that somebody who doesn't agree with you, who isn't aligned with you, who isn't in favor of expanding the government, has finally found an effective way to do that. Despite all of your attempts to censor people and shut down various social media platforms and control people's free speech and control the narrative in this country. Ron Flopowski said the owner of a car company is controlling the House of Representatives from a social media app. And Adam Housley said, let's rephrase this. A man who happens to own companies took the time to wade through the foot-high pile of a spending bill and pointed out massive ridiculousness and misspending, thus doing the work for the American people, catching Congress with their hands in the cookie jar filled with our money. Like, honestly, I get why all these people are fleeing to blue sky, because they are getting absolutely owned on Twitter right now. Here's another one. Representative Deppy Ding said, Elon Musk snaps his fingers and we shut down the government. It's unacceptable. We're in office to serve the people we represent, not unelected billionaires. The pork in your bill would say otherwise, ma'am. We need to reach an agreement that puts the American people first and keeps the government open. Jason Howerton quote tweeted her and said, Elon is speaking for us, Dingle. Stop spending our money like a sugar baby with a shopping addiction, okay? Government shutdown is about the least scary outcome here. Status quo is over. And he's so right. A government shutdown is the least scary option here. They are spending us into oblivion. We will not have a country much longer if they are allowed to continue. This is Mayday. Clint Russell on Twitter said, people act as if Elon or Doge or some new horrifying phenomenon. In fact, your entire life, billionaires have dictated federal spending. The only difference is they had no interest in cuts. It was just the Department of Government Growth. The disingenuous hackery on display in this debate is really just jaw-dropping. Here's Jamal Bowman. He used to be in Congress, but he actually just lost I'm pretty sure it was the most expensive primary of all time. Here he is whining on Twitter about this.
This is what we voted for, y'all. So if the government shuts down, we have millions, if not tens of millions of people impacted, because those who work for the federal government can't pay their bills, will go into debt, and all chaos will break loose. But this is what Elon Musk, who's worth $400 billion, wants to do. And this is what Donald Trump wants to do, and Vivek Ramaswamy wants to do, and J.D. Vance wants to do. This is what we voted for. So they don't want to fix government. They want to create chaos and then siphon money from the government for their own pockets. This is what we voted for. This is where we are. And we better do everything in our power to push back and fight back, or else we will be a complete oligarchy, which is where we are right now. It's not just the healthcare industry. It's big tech, big pharma, big, fossil fuel, military industrial complexes, all of it. They represent that, not the people. And we all have been hoodwinked, unfortunately.
Now, you might recall Bowman, before he lost his election, back when he was still in office earlier this year, was caught on tape pulling a fire alarm in the Cannon House office building in September, shortly before the House was scheduled to vote on a different government funding bill. That's what he's most known for. Like, what an absolute clown. I love this person quote tweeted his video and said, we can't shut down the government. Federal workers won't be able to pay their bills. Remember when we shut down the whole country and 200,000 oil field workers got laid off and people like Jamal just told us to stay home and save lives? I do. I remember. And seriously, just look at this weeping and gnashing of teeth. Here's Bernie Sanders. Democrats and Republicans spent months negotiating a bipartisan agreement to fund our government. The richest man on earth, President Elon Musk, doesn't like it. Will Republicans kiss the ring? Billionaires must not be allowed to run our government. I don't know how people ever like this guy. He is so deeply unserious. Although I do commend him for his anti-capitalist grift and using it to make himself into a millionaire. Impressive. AOC said Republicans are trying to shut down the government because they want to set up massive tax cuts for the rich next year while cutting Social Security and Medicare. Homie, I wish they wanted to shut down Social Security. I have a whole video about the need to reform it at the very least, but I would prefer to get rid of it and be able to opt out of it. But Republicans, this Republican Party, these people have no intention of cutting that. That is insane. They actually campaigned on keeping it going. Representative Mike Levin was also complaining online. He said, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, the billionaire in chief, are showing their true colors. They care more about throwing tantrums than helping farmers and hurricane victims. By killing the government funding bill, they want to score cheap political points on the backs of working people. And Adam Housley again jumped in and said, hey, Mike, why did you guys have to wait months for a spending bill to help hurricane victims? If it was a war, you'd have had the money there yesterday. And yeah, they would have, because they have, okay? They've already been passing bills to fund the various wars that we're not officially in, but that we are in, but they can't do that for disaster relief for Americans. Screw these people. One more, Mike Warner, who's a senator, said, hard to imagine anything more heartless than shutting down the government and leaving disaster victims out in the cold just days before Christmas. Absolutely outrageous. This is even a possibility. And Mike Lee, who's one of the only senators that's truly based, said, no, sir. The offenders here are those who write 1,500-page spending bills in secret and spring them on their colleagues days before Christmas with no time to debate or even read them. And then they accuse anyone who cries foul of trying to cause a government shutdown. Got him. In the grand scheme of things, this is but a very small step in the right direction. We are talking about $110 billion in spending when we are $36 trillion in debt and counting. But adding to that in any way is suicidal. So it is important that they are finally, at least in some regard, taking a stand here. But you can see on display just how difficult it's going to be to ultimately stop this monster. The people are going to have to pay attention. They're going to have to keep the pressure up, and they're going to have to organize, especially in online spaces, if we truly want to right the ship and have a country to hand down to future generations. All right, guys, I hope you like this episode. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to my channel if you've not already, and if you want even more content, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok.